Alrighty, today we are going to look at grammar lesson 2.3. So we're moving forward in our grammar chapter 2, about having effective sentences. And part of effective sentences is what we looked at in lessons 1 and 2, understanding what a sentence actually is, a subject and a verb, that expresses a complete thought. That's the basics. And now that we understand what a sentence is versus a run-on or a fragment, we can start making our sentences better. And the way to make a sentence better is to have effective word choice, structuring your sentences well and choosing the right words to put into your sentences. So today's lesson on page 37 is about eliminating wordy sentences, getting rid of extra words. So there's 3 things that we want to do. We want to get rid of repetition, so we don't want to say something more than once unless we have to. We want to use one word if we can instead of many. So if you have the option to choose using one really great word or many words to say what you want to say, use the one word. Don't make it wordy if you don't have to. And then using the active voice, which is when the subject actually performs the verb, which seems like it makes sense, but a lot of the times we do say things that aren't in active voice. So we'll talk in more detail about what active voice means in a minute. This is something that can be a challenge. A lot of us are tempted to want to make our writing look longer, and we think the way to do that is to just say the same thing over and over and add a bunch of extra words that aren't necessary. No. The way to make your writing longer, if you need it to be longer, is to actually have better developed thoughts and learn how to describe and expand on what you're saying, not just add unnecessary wording. So let's look on page 37 in your grammar book and talk through each one of these. So the first one, get rid of repetition. Your book says eliminate unnecessary repetition. Don't say the same thing twice. I see this fairly frequently in 6th grade writing where you say something and then you basically say it again 2 or 3 more times, just slightly differently worded. You don't need to do that. All right, so here's an example of a very wordy sentence. And you're probably going to read it and say, yeah, I might write something like that, because it doesn't sound wrong. And it's not that it's necessarily wrong, it's just unnecessarily wordy. And that's not the most effective sentence we could have. So this is a wordy sentence. Every single day in the months of July and August, my friends and I went swimming at 6 p.m. in the evening. So at first glance, you might not think there's anything wrong with that, but let's look at how they revised it, how they fixed it to talk about why that sentence was wordy. So instead of every single day, they just put every day. You don't need to say every single day. That's a phrase we use a lot, but if you say every day, then obviously it's every single day. It's all the days. Every day is plenty wordy there. In July and August, they got rid of the prepositional phrase in the months of, okay? July and August are by definition months. So you don't need to say in the months of July and August. You can just say in July and August. My friends and I went swimming at 6 p.m. because, again, by definition, p.m. is in the evening. So it's simple things like that where we're tempted to add all these extra words and we think we're being good writers, but we're actually being unnecessarily wordy. So that's one strategy to get rid of wordy sentences, is to stop using repetitive phrases. Don't say something twice unless you need to. So that's an example of how that could be done. Another way to eliminate wordiness is replace a group of words with one word. So try to use only one word if you can. Use one strong word instead of a group of words. So here's another wordy sentence. Due to the fact that we swam for several hours, we were in a state of exhaustion. So, at the beginning, due to the fact, it's not wrong, but it is a little wordy. And then a state of exhaustion, not wrong, but a little wordy. So they've rephrased this. Instead of due to the fact, they just said because. Those mean the same thing, and because is less wordy. Because we swam for several hours, we were not in a state of exhaustion, but we were exhausted. So they used one word there, both of those times, to say the exact same thing. All right, so that's a second strategy for being less wordy. So we want to eliminate repetition. We want to use one word if we can instead of a group of words. And then finally, we want to use active voice as much as possible. It's not necessarily always possible to use active voice, but it is a lot of the time. And active voice is when the subject actually is the one or the thing doing something, doing the verb. And you probably are saying to yourself, well, of course, that's the definition of a subject and a verb. The subject is the who or what, and the verb is what that who or what is doing. But sometimes the way we word sentences doesn't make it that way. So look at the example in the book for active voice. The first sentence, the pool was cleaned by the lifeguard. So ask yourself in that sentence, what's the subject? The subject there is pool, but what's the verb? Was cleaned. So we have a subject and then an action, but is the subject the one actually doing the action? Did the pool clean itself? No, it was cleaned by someone else. Then we have a prepositional phrase telling us who did it. Sometimes that is okay. I don't believe that you always have to use active and you can never use the passive voice like they have here. Sometimes passive is just needed, and sometimes it can be effective, but most of the time active is going to be a stronger sentence. And not only will it be stronger, it will be less wordy, because that sentence, the pool was cleaned by the lifeguard, was 7 words. So how could we rewrite that sentence so that the subject is doing the action? So we have to think, what's the action? The action is that the pool was cleaned. Who was doing the cleaning? It was the lifeguard, so we need to make the lifeguard the subject of that sentence. So it says, the lifeguard cleaned the pool. The sentence means the exact same thing now, but we've just taken it from a 7-word sentence to a 5-word sentence. So remember, in your writing, you don't want to have all short sentences, but you want to be intentional with your longer sentences, that they're not just wordy unnecessarily. All right, so we're in the process here in chapter 2 of perfecting our writing, making it better, refining it. Okay, so those are the ways we can eliminate wordy sentences. Your assignment today is going to be a little unique, sort of. So we're going to work on 2 different exercises, exercise 1 and exercise 2 for this lesson. We're going to do 5 examples from each exercise, and then you're going to finish those exercises for your own personal assignment. So let's go ahead and do exercise 1, numbers 1 through 5, and then your homework will be to do numbers 6 through 10. I'll put the actual assignment is typed out there in your Canvas page, and I'll put it on the board at the end too. But let's look at exercise 1. We're going to practice using the active voice. Let me grab my eraser. All right, so we need to rewrite these sentences. The sentences they've given us are in the passive voice. And we want to rewrite them so that they are active voice, so that the subject is performing the action of the sentence. So number 1 on the bottom of 37 says, a half marathon is organized by our town each year. So that is passive voice because the marathon didn't organize itself. So think about what's the action of the sentence and what is the verb and what's the action of the sentence and what is the subject who did that action, and let's reword this. So what's the action? A half marathon is organized by our town each year. Is organized is the verb. Organize is the action happening. So who does the organizing? The town. So we could simply reword this by saying our town organizes a half marathon each year. All right, so that's how that works. We find the verb, and then we ask ourselves who is doing that verb, and we rewrite the sentence so that whoever's doing the verb, the town, then the verb goes with it. The subject is actually performing the action. Let's look at number 2. The runners are sponsored by townspeople. So what's the action here? Are sponsored. But the runners aren't sponsoring themselves. Who's doing the sponsoring? It's the townspeople. So townspeople sponsor the runners. hoping you're getting the hang of how this is. If you notice, usually in the passive voice, you've got a prepositional phrase at the end of the sentence, and usually you've got to take the subject from that prepositional phrase and bring it to the front of the sentence. All right, over to page 38, number 3. For 3 weeks before the race, donations are collected by the runners. So the first part's just a phrase, that's okay. For 3 weeks before the race, that's going to stay the same. So how are we going to fix the passive part? Donations are collected by the runners. So what's the action in that part of the sentence? Collected. Who does the collecting? Not the donations. They're not collecting themselves. By the runners. The runners are doing the collecting. So for 3 weeks before the race, the runners collect donations. You should probably also be noticing that the tense of the verb is changing from like past participle with a helping verb to a present tense verb usually. Number 4, the half marathon is watched by almost everyone in town. So the action here is the watching. That's what they're doing. Who's doing it? The half marathon isn't watching itself. Who's doing the watching? Everyone in the town. So we're going to flip this here. Almost everyone in town watches the half marathon. Number 5, although an official winner is announced by the judges, everybody wins by raising money for a good cause. So this one's interesting. The second half of the sentence is okay. Everybody wins by raising money for a good cause. That's fine. Everybody wins. Who's doing the winning? Everybody. So that works, but it's the first part, the phrase at the beginning, that needs to be fixed. Although an official winner is announced by the judges. So what's being announced? A winner. Who's doing the announcing? The judges. So although the judges announce an official winner, and I'm not going to write the rest of the sentence up there because it's going to stay the same as the book. And just for time's sake here, I'm not going to. But it would just continue. Everybody wins by raising money for a good cause. All right, so if you notice, we've changed this to active voice, which means it's going to be subject, verb, in all of these. Town organizes, subject, verb. Townspeople sponsor, subject, verb. The phrase, runners collect, subject, verb. Everyone watches, subject, verb. Judges announce, okay? So in the active voice, we're taking it to where the subject and verb are right there, subject, then verb, and that subject is actually the person or thing or organization that is doing that action. That's what active voice means. So for your assignment, for part of your assignment that you're submitting, you are going to be doing numbers 6 through 10 of this exercise. But we're also going to be doing some of exercise 2. So I'm going to move on to exercise 2. We're going to do 5 of those, and then you'll be working on numbers 6 through 10 for both exercises for your assignment. So that was practicing making our sentences better by using active voice. Now we're just going to practice the other ways. It could be active voice, but it also could be not repeating things and making things less wordy. We're just going to make our sentences less wordy by any of the ways we talked about, by using active voice, by not repeating phrases, or by using one word when we can use one word instead of a group. So, exercise 2, number 1 on page 38. Some adults don't approve of skateboarding on account of the fact that they think in their minds that it is dangerous. So how could we change this to be less wordy? What could be eliminated here? Some adults don't approve of skateboarding on account of the fact. That's a pretty wordy phrase. What could we say instead of on account of the fact? Think about that while I get this sentence written up there. Some adults don't approve of skateboarding. All right, so what can we do instead of on account of the fact? How about because? It's one word instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words. We're replacing one word with 5. So much better. Some adults don't approve of skateboarding because. I'm going to underline that just so we recognize that that's what we've done to change it. Because they think in their minds that it is dangerous. There's another thing here that could be fixed. What do you think it might be? It's repetitive. They think in their minds. We don't need to say both of those things together. If you're thinking, you're obviously doing it in your mind. So you can just say they think, not in their minds. So because they think it is dangerous. So remember, as we're changing these sentences, we're not changing the meaning of the sentence. We're not changing what we're saying, what the sentence is communicating. We're just making it less wordy. We're making it read better. Number 2, it is a true fact that skateboarding can cause injuries, but however, so do many other sports. So what could we do here? It is a true fact. Is a fact always true? Yep. So you could just say, it is a fact. Or you could just say, it is true. You don't need both of those words. That's repetitive. So, it is a fact that skateboarding can cause injuries. Let's look at the rest and see if there's anything else to change. But, however, so do many other sports. Do we need but and however? Those are both contrasting conjunctions, just different kinds. So we don't need both of them. But, so do many other sports. That's plenty there. So these are just small changes to make our sentences easier to read, communicate the message better. Number 3, there are accidents had by football players just like skateboarders have them too. Ooh, this one really could use some work. That doesn't even read that well, does it? There are accidents had by football players just like skateboarders have them too. So, I think we need to put this one into active voice, right? Like we did in exercise 1. So how could we make this active voice? How about football players have accidents? Because at first, this sentence had it so that the verb was had, but the subject was accidents. Accidents aren't what's doing the had. It's football players having the accidents. Okay, so football players have accidents just like skateboarders have them too. You could say that, but what could you say instead? Just like skateboarders do. That's simpler. All right, so we're just improving on these sentences here. Number 4. The key to guarding against accidents is the wearing of the proper and correct equipment. All right. What could we do here? The key to guarding against accidents is the wearing of the proper and correct equipment. Okay, so we could keep the key to guarding against accidents. The book suggests getting rid of guarding against and using one word, preventing. So the key to preventing accidents. And there could be more than one way of fixing these sentences, but I'm just going to go with what I've got here in the book. The key, I forgot a word, to preventing accidents, is that right? The key to preventing accidents, this is what the original now says, is the wearing of the proper and correct equipment. How could we simplify that, make it less wordy? We don't need to say is the wearing, we can just say is wearing. Proper and correct equipment. Would proper equipment also by definition be correct equipment and vice versa? Yeah, so you really only need one of those words. You could say is wearing the correct equipment or the proper equipment. I'm going to go with proper, but and trust me, I totally understand and know that it can be very tempting to do these things to make your sentences wordy because we think we're sounding eloquent and more advanced, but really we're just making it seem like we're trying to write longer. That's really all it ends up seeming like. All right, let's look at sentence 5. All right, sentence 5 says, before you ever step on a skateboard to go skateboarding anywhere, put on knee pads as well as a helmet in addition. Whew, that's a long sentence. Let's make that less wordy. Before you ever step on a skateboard to go skateboarding anywhere, how could we simplify that? Okay, well, obviously, if you step on a skateboard, you're doing it to go skateboarding, so we don't need both of those phrases. And we probably don't need to say before you ever step on a skateboard at all. How about if we just said before you go skateboarding? Let's keep it simple, before you go skateboarding. Because that communicates the same idea, and it's much less wordy. And see, these are the types of things that as you get better at this, that you'll start to do as you revise and edit your own writing. You'll start to see these things and start to make these exact types of revisions for yourself. So instead of before you ever step on a skateboard to go skateboarding anywhere, we just say before you go skateboarding. Put on knee pads as well as a helmet in addition. So what do we really need to do here? We need to put on knee pads and a helmet. Keep it simple. Put on knee pads and a helmet. All right, well, I hope doing these examples together and talking through this is helping you to see how you can make your sentences more effective by making them less wordy. So you're going to practice this now for your assignment to submit. So what you're going to submit, you can either just type this in the text entry on Canvas, or you can do it on a separate sheet of paper and then upload that. But you are going to finish both of those exercises that we started. So your assignment is exercise 1, numbers 6 through 10, and exercise 2, numbers 6 through 10, and those are, and that's, so, well, let me do this different. Okay, that one is page 38, where you're finishing off. This is page 38 to 39. Okay, so you should already see what I'm talking about because you should be there in your book anyway, okay? So it's grammar lesson 2.3, finish out exercise 1. We've already done 1 through 5. You're now going to do 6 through 10. Same for exercise 2. We've already done 1 through 5 together. You're going to do 6 through 10. And this is what I'm looking for. So if what you submit is numbers 1 through 5 that we did together, that's not what's going to be graded. You're going to get a 0 for that because I already gave you all those answers as a help. I need to see you doing sentences 6 through 10 on both of those exercises. And that is what you can submit for your assignment for grammar tonight.